So we finally had some dry sunny days after a mostly completely wet spring, summer, and early fall. However, my tea plants this year are looking great. I didn't get any deer damage, and all the rain and all the cloudy weather seems to have suited them really well. And they put out a lot of new growth, and in fact they've been putting out new growth all summer and into the fall, which is unusual for them. So I'm going to try to actually pick and harvest some tea. My understanding normally is that I think typically you're only supposed to take the top 2 or 3 leaves, and that's all I am going to take for the most part, and then we'll see. I think in theory I could take some of the older leaves, but I just as soon not. We'll see how much I get just taking the shoots, and once I get them picked I will show you the quantity, and then we'll go through some simple processing. I've never done this before, so I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but I will record it. I wanted to make a few more observations about these tea plants. I wanted to just show you how attractive the leaves are. They're really dark green, shiny, evergreen leaves, and how they're actually budded up now. The flowers are single white flowers that are fragrant and have a lot of bright yellow stamens. In a few days I think these are going to crack open and flower. They're really nice. A couple of other interesting things. Several spots on this plant I found these what look like variegated leaves. Looking at them closely I don't see insect damage, mites, or anything else. And it's just this one plant. It's a few leaves on a few spots. Some more over here. I don't know what's causing this exactly. It's interesting. I don't know what it's about. But actually the really excellent thing I found when I was out here, I found some seed pods. There's one. Sorry about the focus. There's a seed pod right there. And there's another seed pod here. The camellia seed are really easy to germinate, and I've grown all of my camellias I have, and I have a lot of camellias. I've grown them all from seed that I sourced from Camellia Forest Nursery 10 or 12 years ago. But this is the first time I've ever seen seed pods on these. And here's some more, some pretty big ones here. The seed pods, in order for them to make seeds, they have to be old enough to flower, which, like a lot of trees and shrubs, you're looking at somewhere from 3 to 7 to even 10 years before they flower. And the seed pods mature over the course of an entire year. So if you have a really short, cold fall, the flowers on these get frozen off and you don't get any pollinated. If the winter is too brutal, I don't think the seed pods make it through. But these have made it through, which is really great. You can propagate these from cuttings fairly reasonably well, but I'd be really interested to do seed propagation because I know it's easy for these. These things grow like growing beans or marigolds. There's not much to it, really. So let's go look at how much tea we managed to pull off of these things. So I ended up with a big mixing bowl about half to 2/3 of the way full with tea. I took the top 2 or 3 leaves on tender shoots only. Anything that the growth appeared to be fully mature growth, I didn't take it. I didn't take any single leaves. So I'll take this inside and we'll see what happens. This is the tea leaves after a week. Of course, I meant to get to doing something with them earlier, but it wasn't able to because life happens. In any case, some observations. The tea leaves stayed essentially intact with little shrinking, wilting, or change of color for the first 3 days at least. In the last few days, a few of them have turned this darkish greenish black color. Most of them have just wilted slightly for the most part. The first few days, the tea released a really remarkable fragrance. It was very different. The first day, there was a green, leafy, grassy fragrance, which was nothing special. But after 2 or 3 days, the tea produced a very strong, really delightful tea fragrance. And I don't know specifically what kind of tea. I'm not a tea expert or connoisseur, but I have smelled it before. It's some sort of a green tea. Really, really excellent smell. After a few days, most of that faded away. My conundrum here with the tea is that there's very little information to be found online about how you process tea. And most of what I find is not terribly clear. In terms of making green tea, it seems that I need to heat treat this somehow, either via steaming or pan roasting. I've seen some videos and some articles about it, and none of them are terribly clear, and many of them are contradictory. So I think I'm going to try to do something with these tea leaves, and I'll document that. And then from there, we'll try to dry them out. So we'll see how this goes. I think we'll end up with a usable, drinkable product no matter what, because it seems to me that you can prepare tea in a nearly infinite number of ways, and it just changes the flavor profile of the tea. So here we go. I'm already in the process of boiling some potatoes. So based on that, I think that we will try to steam these lightly over the potatoes and see what we end up with. So we put the tea leaves into a metal colander or sieve. I ended up rapidly changing my mind about trying to steam these tea leaves over the boiling potatoes, as I think that the tea leaves are going to drip out some sort of tea ichor into the potato pot, and that may create a strange and off-putting mashed potatoes that nobody will eat or be happy with. So based on that, I've decided to go ahead and steam them over a pot of plain water, as you can see here. So let's see what happens this way. So I feel I should mention that when reading about steaming the tea, I found steaming times to vary anywhere from a few seconds to several minutes. So, who knows? I'll just do it until it seems right and show you how I'm doing it. As you can see, the water is at a very strong boil now. We're getting lots of steam coming up through the tea, and there's a very strong tea aroma being released now. I just flipped the tea over and I used my hands, and that wasn't the best, so got some tongs now. Do a little tea turning. Some of the tea has now started to look like cooked greens a little bit. It's starting to get shiny, darker in color, slightly wilted down. At this point, I've decided to keep steaming this tea until it all has the wilted cooked greens look, and then I will stop. So I think we're looking at a few more minutes probably. I believe we are almost finished with the tea steaming. Okay, to me it looks like the tea is all pretty well steamed. I'm going to let it go for another minute or so, and then I'm going to take it off the heat. I'm going to call the tea leaves done at this point. I think this is about cooked enough. Everything seems to have at least turned a different shade of green and softened up and wilted a little. So I'm going to stop the steaming at this point. And we'll go to the next phase in our plan. So these tea leaves have cooled down enough that I can handle them. Every tea processing video that I've seen that seems to involve any sort of heating of green tea, there's some sort of maceration. So I'm going to try to kind of squeeze these and roll these a little bit. And then when I'm done, I'm going to move them over here to this tray to dry. It's been about 24 hours since I set these tea leaves to dry on this rack. They're completely dry now. So I'm going to bag them up and we'll weigh them and then we'll try to make some tea. So I've bagged up and weighed out the tea, and we have exactly 1 ounce, which is, to me, a shockingly small weight. So now we are going to weigh out some tea and then make some tea by weight. So theoretically, you're supposed to use 2 grams of dried tea for every 6 ounces of water, and as it turns out, the scale cannot accurately measure that small of a quantity. It won't even measure down to 1/10 of an ounce accurately. So I am just basically guessing based on some futzing around with the scale that I've done, and I did a few trial runs of making tea earlier tonight with the tea and was way too weak, so we're aiming for this amount, and I'm guesstimating that this is about 2 ounces. We will see. Volumetrically, it's more like 6 or 8 uncompressed. But we're going to go ahead and make this and see how it turns out. Fresh, cold water, just shy of boiling. We're going to measure out 6 ounces and then put that on the tea for 2 minutes. Tea removed from heat. We measure out 6 ounces. Six ounces into French press. It seems like quite a lot of water to tea ratio. Maybe it'll turn out properly this time. And now we wait. That has got to be some of the weakest tea that I have ever seen, even for green tea. We'll let it cool down a little bit. We'll give it a try, see what it's all about. I've tried the tea and it's actually excellent. Really good. Excellent flavor, not bitter, not harsh. Just a really nice quality green tea flavor. Nothing bad to say about this tea. I could drink this tea all day. I'm not much of a tea drinker generally, so this turned out really well. Very good, actually. I think the next time I make it, I will add even more tea leaves and see if we can get it a little stronger, but this is pretty good. Not bad at all. And that is it for tea making from camellia to cup.